Okay, I'm muting.
We are learning the Shaar Habitochon. We're still in the introduction. Those following on Chabad.org, it's an introduction, part 6. Again, you're not going to find my reading of the Hebrew the same for some reason. Looks like it's a different version, but it's similar in the content. All right, so we're like this. We're talking about the idea of having faith and lack of worries. So it says, what's one of of course, another benefit for those who trust in God is Yisraimam v'yisader v'inyan hadas. It helps the person elevate and to be beautiful, so to say, in when it comes to things of das. Das is religion. Ki Hashem yis'ale im hoya bal hoin. The person who trusts God elevates themselves, whether they have a lot of financial or other securities. Yimar lahafresh batnes Hashem. They're fast to give gifts towards God, like tzedakah, charity, etc. V'zchuis b'nei adam, and things that could help others. Mehoyne b'nefesh nediva b'tuv leiv, from what they have, and they give it in a good heart. A person who has trust in Hashem, when they're giving and they're thankful that Hashem blesses them, so they're happy to help others. He says over here in the commentary, Rabbeinu Bechaya, the author, is Milamdenu Khan is teaching us, the person who trusts God is Tayram the Pituach Makam Navshi Nochen Hamaavsher Saitzas Amaman Avon Yoni Mitzvahs and Sin Stuck about Mishuchra Vigayalasi. The person who's has faith in Hashem is happy for the opportunity that their means and their own personal security help as allows for them to further in doing what's right and tzedakah and other things. Like he says, the person who doesn't properly have faith in Hashem, he says it's harder for that person to separate from their finances. They either don't want to give or they try to push it off as much as possible. When you don't have trust in Hashem, so you say, okay, I have something now, I have money. God, Baruch Hashem, I just was able I got my paycheck. I'm going to go give tzedakah. So your connection to your security is not based on having faith, trust. It's not solid enough with trust, and therefore you have a hard time to do maybe things that halachically or in or pitori you should do. He says, the person who has trust, if a person who has trust in Hashem and God gives them the ability financially, Hashem Berchai, God blesses that person. So they're so excited to immediately be able to give their obligations and fulfill their obligations with regard to charity. When you do it with a good heart, you're happy. The person who has faith knows that the God's giving them blessings financially, and it comes from God. And there's no way that if I do what Hashem asks me to do, God says, give tzedakah, give charity, give tithings. There's no way that God, who is the source of all the blessings, is going to ask me to give something that's going to hurt my blessing, my finances. So you do what Hashem tells you to do. And when a person has faith, it's not hard. You do it easily. But what about a person who's not been blessed, so to say, with tremendous financial success? Obviously, we have other successes. Is Hashem? So the person who has not been blessed with an abundance or extra, so to say, finances, is actually in a way is happy. Why? You're not disappointed. This is an interesting approach from the author. Why? Because for some reason God didn't bless me with huge success financially. Obviously, He doesn't want me to be that's not my mission in life, to be a huge donor. I don't have it. It's not. I can't give something I don't have. So you're happy to know that that's not your mission, and you move on. And because you don't have a lot of finances that you have been given as a blessing by God, is miatirdas libai bishmirase. Now you don't have to apply a lot of your focus on protecting your finances because there's not much to protect. V'nihalai, or to run it. So then you know that the Hashem giving you, hopefully, and it doesn't mean Hashem is not going to provide for you. Doesn't mean you're going to go starving. Maybe if you're not the person that's dealing with large amounts of excess of extra finances, that you know that you have a responsibility from Hashem to you give that out. So then you have to give it up. If you haven't given a lot of excess finances, so then obviously God didn't. That was His intention, was for you to give your amount of charity that you're able, and you move on. He says over here in the commentary, when a person has faith in God, everything comes from God. So then, how does he view your financial status? Is a God gave it to you as a keeper. He wants you to be a keeper of this finance. So if God gives you a large amount, so God gave it to you as a pikadon, he trusted it with you to distribute it according to the way God wants. So there's a lot of oil, there's a lot of stress to make sure you're giving it to the right places, to the right people, and how much you should be giving. But if a person has less, you don't get overwhelmed and upset. On the contrary, so you know that God that's not what God wants you to spend your time on, because you don't have it. So therefore you have other things you're supposed to be doing. And therefore the point is that your trust in God is that no matter what your situation is, it's with intention. So if God gives you a lot, so then His intention for you is to be you're a custodian for Him to give out charity or to do the right things with the finances. And if He gives you less, then that's obviously not your mission. Something else is your mission, and you're equally happy. He says, "Kamay sha'amru alechat tzadikim." There was a righteous person that Rabbeinu Bachai says, Shahayim, he used to say, "Harachaman, may the merciful." Yatzileinu mipizar nefesh. He should save me from spreading my soul out. Amr Lai. So the people asked him, Ma pizar nefesh. What do you mean to spread your soul out? Amr Lai shehili rechush b'reish kol nachal b'cholir. That if I'm a huge financier, a huge businessman, and I have properties and assets in every single city, my mind is all over the place. I have to worry about this investment and that investment, this investment. And then I'm spreading a lot of my energy on managing my investments. So this righteous person says, save me from that. And this is what it says. The original person said that, which means to say this is coming from the Mishnah. The when a person has a lot of things, right, a lot of assets, then you have a lot of worries. Who is the rich, the wealthy man, is happy with the lot that God gives them. Meaning to say, he says, when it comes to material things, a Jew must be happy with their lot, that they receive from God. And that's the true rich person. The true rich person is not about what you could show on your ATM or in your balance statement, but your satisfaction with your lot. And he continues. The person who has trust in God, so he understands in his what he's been given as a blessing. And he knows that this all comes from Hashem. Means he sees in the money that he sees that what he could do with his finances. And it says he saves himself. He doesn't allow for the tirdas, the overwhelmingness to take hold, and he has less worries. As King Solomon said, he says it's sweet, sweet. Shnas ha'ovid, the one who serves ima'at imharba, whether it's a lot or a little, yoichel, he eats v'hasava, and satisfaction and fullness is la'ashra enam aniach la'lishain. He said, "Ve'im harba yochel v'asava la'asher," and the person who's a wealthy person, ena maniach la'lishin, doesn't allow the person to rest because your finances overwhelm you. See where we're holding in the English. Sorry, I went ahead. I think we're holding part 8. Okay, and he says, he continues, umihem. Another benefit for spiritual bet for a person who has faith in Hashem. Shabbatech el Hashem, the person who has faith in Hashem, lo yimne'ehu roiv mammon milivtoich al Hashem. Ki eini nishan al hoinei. The person who has major trust in Hashem it doesn't prevent the person, him or her, from trusting God because he doesn't rely or she doesn't rely on it. Again, he looks at it like that God entrusted him to use it in certain ways, until that time comes up. Means God, the person who's been given, this is an amazing approach. The person who's been given blessings, whatever the blessings is, it could be financial, it could be other things. The author seems to be going more on finances, but the same thing applies to anything. Then a person's been giving blessings, you look at it as a pikadon, as a you've been entrusted. So as long as God entrusts you with it and he has faith that you're going to do the right thing, so then you do the best you can. And when it's time, and you know that it has a limit, and when that time is up, you move on. And even if you have it for a long time, you don't just have a little situation where you've been successful and then things went back, let's say, chas v'shalom. You don't get upset because, sorry, and if he has it a long time, it doesn't cause you to forget about Hashem. Wow, look, I'm a wealthy man. God entrusted me. So you start forgetting that you're just a custodian and you think that you're worthy of it. He says like this, you don't forget that what was given to you is from Hashem. He says sometimes we see when a person gets a lot given to them by God, we start to forget who's given it to us. The person who has faith, has trust, you always remember it's not yours, it was given to you by God. And every minute it's re-giving it to you. And you also know that it could be that time will come at a later point when God will take it away from you. And therefore, he says, you don't feel great about yourself. You don't use it as a way to beautify yourself. I'm better than the next person. Or when you give to someone, you give with humility. You don't give like I'm giving you. It's mine, I'm giving you. Then you think it's yours, and you're giving it. You know that you've been a custodian to give it. You're not looking for 1,000 thank yous and blessings because you gave something to someone. You are thankful to God, who's the real owner of the finances or whatever blessing you have. It doesn't just have to be money, but anything that you have that you could give to someone else. And when you give from your time, from your money, from your influence, from your knowledge to someone, you don't say, well, I didn't have to give this to you. You're thankful that God made you as a person of opportunity to be a giver, whatever that giving is, to be a mashpia. And you're thankful for God that he made you someone to be a giver. Again, you could give a lot of things. You could give time, you could give knowledge, you could give a helping hand. But the idea is you want to be a mashpia, you want to be a giver. You don't want to be, if you have to be a taker, you're a taker. You'd rather be a giver. At least the emphasis should be on giving. So, but when you give, it's not an idea that you're giving and you're expecting acknowledgement, recognition. You're thankful to be a person that God entrusted to be a giver. It could have been the other way around. It could have been you should be a taker. And what happens if you lose what you've had? Love. You don't lose sleep on it. This is a big madrega. You no longer care about the fact that it's not there anymore. That's very hard. That's a big madrega. A person never had, so there's no whatever. You never tasted sugar. But I remember I was once in India, traveling through. It was business, so it wasn't tourist. It was the middle of nowhere. We were traveling on a long road somewhere, and we stopped in like we would stop. It was long drive, so we would stop in rest spots and to go out. And I bought because of kosher. I bought all my food with me. So I bought my supper, lunch, and snacks and all that. So I had Pringles. So when I came out, you could buy certain things over there, drinks, water, Coke, and stuff like that. Maybe there's some packaged goods that you could buy, but in these remote places, it's less likely for you to find anything prepackaged. It's all, you could get fresh made food. So I keep kosher. It wasn't something on my diet. But I was traveling with Gentiles who were not keeping kosher, and they just ate whenever they'd go to a rest stop, they would eat something. So I came out with a pack of Pringles, and I saw some kids sitting there. So I offered them Pringles. So the Indian gentleman that was traveling with me says, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "What's wrong?" I'm wondering because he's never going to have it again. So why would you give it to him one time? Why would you give him why did you give him to taste something that he'll never have again? You're traveling through. Most people don't travel with Pringles because they eat the local foods. You happen to have your own diets. You're bringing prepackaged American food with you. Why would you give him something he will never experience again? So the idea is, and then the person's gonna have this taste in their mouth. I once ate some Jewish young boy came by and gave me Pringles, right? What was that food that I had? That person's gonna have a shiafaz, gonna have a yearning for something that may not be ever accessible to them. In a place like India, for those who've been there, it's very hard to get out of your social situation. It's very hard to climb out of where you are. So if you're a person, it's not like the opportunities, let's say you have in America. Anyone could make it. It's much harder. Anyone could make it in India, but it's a lot harder. Harder.
But
So he said, hmm?
you said that some people are takers and some people are givers, but
Yes,
doesn't everyone, even the poor, have to give something, even if
yes,
it's just
yes.
their time?
Yes, everyone is a giver. Everyone has to be a giver and a taker. Even the person who gives is a taker. Who gives you the permission? Someone always needs someone for something, a blessing, a friend, a smile, a healing. Someone always needs something. But then there's people who predominantly their lives is that they're able to Baruch Hashem be a giver. And there's some people who predominantly, even though they give, but they're mainly receiving. So there's a famous story that the Rebbe Maharash, the fourth Rebbe Chabad, was traveling, and he used to do a lot of travels. That seemingly his travels were connected to either health or this or that. But a lot of the times they were either connected to helping the benefit of Jewish people in certain governments, or to just inspire Jewish people, communities that needed chizuk. It was very hard times when the times of the Rebbe Maharash. A lot of poverty in Eastern Europe. And some way or another, the Rebbe ended up sukkahs in, I think, either in a city in Romania or Hungary, which was out of the boundaries of Chabad Hasidus, which is Russia. And he stayed Yom Tif sukkahs in this Romanian little village. And everyone was so happy, and it was simple people. And everyone was so happy that this great Rebbe was with them, and he rented a big house over the Yom Tif, and had a big courtyard. And they finally, at the end, they said, listen, not everyone had a chance to see the Rebbe. So maybe before the Rebbe leaves, after Sukkot, maybe they could do a big gathering, and the Rebbe would meet everyone like in a public gathering, like in a Fabrengen. So they did that, and they made a big stage, and the Rebbe came up on top of the stage, and the place was packed. This story is told in Sefer HaToldos in the biography of the Rebbe Marash. Tradition has it the Rebbe wrote that biography. So the Rebbe Marash comes and he gets on the podium, and he starts to say a mimer. He starts to say a Hasidic teaching on Tehillim, on Psalm 102, which is Tefillah la'ani ki yatav lifnei Hashem mishpech sichai, the prayer of the poor man. And the Rebbe said like this. The Rebbe says that in life, God created the world, that there's givers and takers, not just in this world, but in the whole creation. The sun gives to the moon. So the sun emanates light, and the moon reflects the light of the sun. And there's the intellect gives to the motions gives to speech. So the whole world was created in a system of mashpia makabel, of giving and taking. And again, the one who gives is usually taking from a higher place. So the Rebbe says, the poor man says to God, Tefillah Lani, the poor man says to God, the King David's talking on behalf of the poor man, and he says to God that I know you made a creation, and I know your system for whatever reason is that there's givers and takers. So therefore, in our world, you made it so that instead of giving everyone equally, you gave some people financially more, And it's their jobs to be givers to those who have to take, those who are the poor people that have to receive the charity from the rich people. So the poor man says to God, I understand that that's your system, but why me? What did I do wrong? I understand that's your, in the greater plan, there has to be some takers and have to be some givers, but why me? What did I do that I have to be a taker? Why can't I also be a giver? And that's the prayer of the poor man. And it says the Rebbe writes in the biography in the Rebbe Rash that everyone was crying when the Rebbe Rash was saying this Torah because the people felt it, that he was talking to the people that were living that prayer. So he continues, but a high madrega is the v'im ovad hamamin mimenu. But if the money is no longer there, or what you have to give no longer is there, and you don't feel bad, and you're not doyeg, you're not worried about that you don't have anymore. You're thankful to God. This is very hard. This is very high madrigot. This is very high levels of a person. You're thankful to God. Shekibul b'chazara as pigdaina me'etzlai k'may shahari like kishemasrulai k'may shahidi like kishemasrulai. You're thankful to God that he took it back, just like you're thankful when he gave it to you, right? You say we thank God for when he gives as he takes. Sometimes he gives us blessings, sometimes he takes them away. And you have to be like this famous story of the Magidim is rich had a student, the famous student Reb Zusha of Anipoli. And Reb Zusha of Anipoli was very, he had a very difficult life financially. His marriage wasn't good. He was just he's a big tzaddik, a big rebbe, but he suffered a lot. And so there were once two students came into the Maggid, other two students, and they asked the Maggid, teach us, what does it mean to be thankful to God for the good, for the bad like the good? I mean, how could you expect a person to be thankful to God just as much as they're thankful for the good, to be thankful for the bad? I mean, how could you expect that from a person? How could you expect someone to say to God literally with the same passion, the same excitement, the same gratefulness for the bad as for the good? So they said we don't understand this. So the Maggid says, go ask Zusha. Zusha was the student, like I said, that suffered a lot in life, in everything. So they went to Zusha and they said, Zusha, the Rebbe sent us to you to ask us that we should ask you, what does it mean to be thankful to God for the bad, just like we were thankful for the good? And Reb Zusha says, wow, that's so funny. I find it so interesting that the Rebbe, meaning the Maggid, our teacher, should have sent you to me, because I'm shocked that he would send you to me, because I've never experienced anything bad in my life. So I don't understand how I could be a person that could help you understand this, because I don't know what it is to have something bad in my life. And from this, they understood what the Maggid was saying. That Reb Zusha had reached the level that even though they knew clearly his life was horrible, but he had a lot of problems in his life, but he didn't even understand why they would come to him, because he didn't view it as something bad. So he says, and the next thing is that again, there's different ways we look at things depending on our circumstances. When a person's circumstances initially were low, let's say, like the person who never tasted Pringles, so they don't have high expectations. When a person once was in a better situation and things are no longer the way they were, right? So then a lot of other emotions kick in. And one of those emotions is jealousy, or wondering why am I no longer a custodian? Why is that person still a custodian? Why is that person still able to live a high life and I'm not? So the Rabbeinu B'chaya says, you don't look bad at the next person. You don't judge the next person. Why is that person worthy to continue to live a better life than me? And he talks very strong. You're not jealous of anyone for their financial success. Like the wise one said, meaning King Solomon, the righteous person eats and he or she has satisfaction. Means you have what Hashem gives you and you're satisfied with that. He continues. He says, what does this mean? He says, having faith in Hashem is not just going to help you spiritually. It's also going to help you have a healthy, peaceful, tranquil life. Mihem, he says, for instance, When you have faith, you don't allow for circumstances that are happening in the world, things that are happening to be daigas, to be worries for you. And you have menucha from the terror, from the craziness and the tirda. So he says, why? Because you don't have a yearning towards those things don't define you. He says like this. I'm going to read the commentary. It says benefesh shechenes trukos. There's many desires a soul has. A person has many wants in life. There's a lot of things you want. I want things. Sometimes you actualize the things you want in your life, and sometimes you're less like you don't have those things that you want. You have wants, but they don't always actualize. Habitochon b'Hashem, the person who has faith in God, it has the calmness and doesn't allow for these wants to overwhelm you. Whether they're satisfied or not, they're still overwhelming. They're pressure. He goes, Hagal menuchas maritzonis v'tshukos, and goes, what does it mean? Now, the author of the book that I'm reading is giving an interesting definition. That there's two ways to approach how not to be overwhelmed by wants, which is to say, I don't want anything. A person may think, what is the strategy I have to be satisfied in life? To have no wants. If you have no wants, then you're automatically satisfied. So he says, so he goes, Hagal menuchat, the way a person reaches tranquility, maritzoinus from your wants, v'tshukas in your desires, aim pirish, it does not mean viter aleim behechrach, that you say, I don't want anything. So therefore, I'll be happy in life. I have zero needs. So therefore, I have no expectations. There are those who claim that better to not have any wants or expectations, because they're only a foundation for disappointment. When you have expectations, you expect them to happen, and if they don't happen, so then you create it. What do we tell our children sometimes? Lower your expectations so you won't be disappointed. So therefore, that's maybe a safe strategy to avoid being disappointed in life. And a person who has no wants or expectations, you'll never be disappointed because you never had expectations. So the author says this is a foolish strategy. HaKadosh Baruch Hu baras hanefesh, God created a person. And part of the definition of a person is, you should have wants. A person has to have wants. The strategy cannot be to squash. How do you deal with disappointment is to squash my wants. Because when you get rid of your wants, you have no motivation in life. So you're not going to do anything, you're not going to be productive. Why? Because I don't have any expectations of myself or the world. So it's and it's going to push the person. And God placed wants in a person as a tool to motivate you to accomplish things. So if you have no wants, you're not going to be a person who accomplishes anything. We're not here in this world to survive. We're not just taking up space. God has a purpose for us. And in order to do our purpose, we must be motivated. The question is what motivates us. But we have to be motivated as people. You can't kill motivation to protect yourself from disappointment, because then what your purpose, then you're not going to feel anything in life. Even though he says that when a person has wants, it could overwhelm the person. The person is trying, again, in life, we all naturally, subconsciously, consciously, whatever it is, or sometimes we get help from others, try to work a strategy to navigate life. So the author here is saying, as some people would say, that the strategy is to lower your expectations, lower your motivations, lower your wants, and like this, your disappointments will be less. So, but God creates a person with wants. That's not a bad thing. The question is, how do we make sure that how we manage our wants? And he says, "V'ligram lichsay sheked mismashech." So the author doesn't give us the solution, but he tells us that that's not the answer. The answer is not that we don't have wants and we don't have motivation, we don't have desires for things, because that's what a nefesh is a ratzin, is a want. But it's the question is to manage it, to focus it in the right direction. And he says, "V'harehu," the person who has bitachon. See, again, this is a lot of things the Rebbe used to say many times, that the bitachon, trust, and humility is all these things, all these seemingly strategies are not about getting rid of yourself. They're actually the best way to be yourself. The best way you're going to be able to have healthy wants, healthy motivations, healthy drives is when your foundation is trust, your foundation is humility. Because you're a person with talent and you're a person who can accomplish a lot. But when you get the ego out of it and you get you apply your wants and talents to the right direction, not to further your personal benefit, but to be able to be a person who says, what benefits God, what benefits godliness, what benefits creation. Why was I put here? I'm very talented, I have a lot to give. But the giving is not about furthering my covet, that my recognition that people should honor me, or I should but my motivations should be to further the interest of my purpose of creation. The person who's able to use the trust in God as their foundation to navigating their wants and expectations, so they're in a calm situation, and anything that happens means that what happens, the healthy person who has wants and expectations and also has motivation knows when things are out of their control, they don't get overwhelmed, because that's obviously means that either there's a way around it or that I have to go in a different direction. But it doesn't say, okay, therefore I have to squash my motivation. Like it says, Baruch HaGever, blesses the person. Asher yiftach v'Hashem, that places the trust in God. V'hoya Hashem yiftachi, God is your trust. It's just like a tree, shasu amayim, that's by the water. V'al yuval yishach shorshav, and he goes and he draws from the moisture of the river, knows that's its existence. You know your existence comes from Hashem. And that to have that foundation of trust, and when you have trust, then your motivation, you don't get rid of your motivation. You don't get rid of your wants. You don't get rid of your with your focus of accomplishing something. You just know that maybe it's something else you have to be doing, because you've been given a purpose to do it. And it's not, and if your trust is in Hashem, so if you face an obstacle, either you try to get around it, under it, whatever it is, but you don't allow that to throw you off your game, and definitely not to put you into despair. When we have, he says, I'm going to do a little bit more. Okay, we're going to do the last part of this section, and then we're going to try to hopefully finish the introduction next week. Because we have another benefit of having trust in Hashem is you're not a person who has to do a lot of travels. As a that you're not going to do things that you say, well, if someone says you're not sleeping enough, or you're traveling too much, you're working too hard, right? So I have to work hard, right? Even if you're going to say it's not beneficial to my health, it may be harming my health, but how am I supposed to eat? No, the person who has trust knows that it can't be, that there's things that I'm doing that are harming me. That a person is stressful on the way, it cuts time out of your life. So you're not doing things. You're not a person who travels a lot and goes out of their way because thinking that's the only way to get your parnasa, your livelihood. But he says like this. There's a story told, the author says, about a person who was a big believer in God, a big servant of God. In the beginning of his travels in life, he used to travel far for his business. He meets an idol worshiper in one of his travels. Asher Nasa Eleha, one of the cities that he went to. Amalei Parish, so the God-fearing man tells this idol worshiper, Hinchem betachlis hasimoin. You guys are blind. You don't understand. How do you worship these idols? So he starts giving musr to this idol worshiper. So Amgushi, the idol worshiper tells this seemingly religious, pious person, who do you worship? Malaya Parish, the person, the God-fearing person tells the idol worshiper, Ani Ovid Sabaira, I worship the Creator, Kel Shaka the one God. That he gives, provides, and there's nothing like God. So the idol worshiper tells him back, your actions contradict your words. Amar Parish Eichazet, what do you mean? The God-fearing person says, what do you mean my actions contradict my words? Gushi, so the idol worshiper tells him, if what you're saying is true, that God provides for me, and I worship the God that is kind and giving, and he's and has act and can do whatever he wants. Then why hasn't he provided for you where you live? Why do you have to travel so far to get your livelihood if God's able to do anything? So why does he make you travel 1,000 miles every day to to make your living? Just like he gives you a financial benefit here, he could do it there. Why do you have to come to this place? The distance that there isn't there. So he answers him that Nistaimu Tainois of a parish, so the God-fearing person says, you're right. He went back to his city. He never went back on his travels. And then the author goes into, that's not so simple, we're going to stop here, but the author goes into, but we know that the Hasidic we talk about, that there's benefit in our travels. That the Baal Shem Tov teaches us that anywhere we go in life is for a purpose of refining godliness, to give over a message, to meet someone. But that's if a person says that if my parnasa takes me there, it must be something for God. If I have to travel every day 5 hours somewhere for my business, must be that's the way I'm going to serve God. Not because that's the only way I can make a living. God, my mission in life to bring godliness to the world is by traveling this distance. So when you view it that way, so you view like the Baal Shem Tov says, that anywhere a person goes is for a reason. But when you view it that I need to go there because otherwise I can't make a living, so then you're separating your trust in God with your mission from God. All right, Aaron, thank you for being my host today.
Well, I feel this is one of the most important books. I mean, I think this book is like people go to all these what do you call it, psychologists, psychiatrists. They should just read this book. I'm thinking this book would solve a lot of their problems.
Yeah, this is the Shaar Habitochon is huge.
But I got one question for you. You keep saying that Hasidism says this. And when I hear what they say, it seems like even the simple man, it's not like, I'm not talking about like Borough Park or religious areas in Israel, but I'm talking when I hear you say Hasidism, there's got to be a deeper meaning, because Hasidim, what you're talking about, even the simple man should follow. It's not something.
No, 100%. I don't mean to say it's for the Chassidim and not for the simple man. I'm just saying that Chassidic insight, Chassidic is for everyone. So you're just that your heart is a Chassid, Aaron. You're listening to the words of Chassidus. So even if you're not looking like maybe the Chassid, if you don't feel like you're looking like the Chassid down the street, it has nothing to do. The Chassidus is talking to everyone. I'm not talking about for the unique person, the Chassid, the special person who's going the extra mile. This book, Shaar Habitochon, is not only for Jews, it's for Jews and Gentiles. If you have trust in God, this is your foundation of how you're supposed to behave, how you're supposed to view things. This is not, and this is, I don't mean to do it in a way as this is.
I know you don't, but I'm just.
Yeah.
But let me just, if you have one more minute, I just want to say in a school that was not Chabad, but one of the teachers happened to be a Chabad.
Yeah.
He said to my son, I think it was around 8th grade. It was very profound. He says, I wear a long jacket. I have a long beard. It makes me feel, gives me whatever, what do you call it? not trust, but oh, people look to me, they honor me. Okay, but he said this dress is just a dress. It's just a costume. If you don't walk, it's better for you not to dress like this and to follow the mitzvahs than to dress like this and not follow the mitzvahs. So he looked at the students who weren't Chabad or Hasidim. There was just a modern Jewish yeshiva, and he said to these eighth graders, when my son was one of them, said, "Do the mitzvahs. Don't worry about how you dress. Just there's certain basic things like a seat, and a yarmulke, but beyond that, it's the mitzvahs more than what you look like."
Yeah, 100% right, Aaron. 100% right. Thank you for sharing that. Lila Tov, and have an easy fast if you're fasting. Take care.
Yep. Thank you. You too.